Welcome to the Church of Mabus radio show. It's Friday night, 7:07 p.m. Central. You're listening to United Public Radio, 107.7 FM, New Orleans. And we got Jay McNicholas here with us tonight. He's co-hosting. And we got Teel James Glenn, the return. Good to have you here, Teel.
Very nice to visit you guys, entering another realm.
Yes. And yes, most definitely. And yeah, that's pretty much the show pretty much started based on paranormal stuff. And now we just kind of do everything. Like I've had Joe R. Lansdale on, Al going back, had Neil Donald Walsh conversations with God on. I never thought he would come on the show. That was like they do some weird stuff. And then we get serious with Bigfoot and UFO, and I could name a lot of those different people. But and then we just had the whole Trump Antichrist show about Mabus being him, which is, when you first hear it, you're like, yeah, whatever. But when Eric starts breaking it down, it's creepy. Like he starts breaking down the acronyms.
Almost everything he said was going to happen happened.
Yeah, it gives you goosebumps. But I just think I definitely think Trump isn't a suave European, Lestat Antichrist. He's more of a Napoleon dumbass Antichrist. He's smart in his own ways, but he's definitely devious in a Napoleonic kind of way, Caligula type situation. But I could see Mabus being that. But that's an interesting show. If you want to backtrack and check it out, check it out. And I watched that American Primeval on Netflix. It was good. It was a Western, but man, it was violent. Like it was just nonstop scalping, and I guess it was accurate. I mean, I don't know if it was like that every second there, but in the Wild West and everything. But the show, I was like, man, and I'm someone that can usually, handle all that kind of stuff, violence, and I love horror movies and stuff. But that was just nonstop, just Mormons killing Indians, Indians killing Mormons, redneck dudes. Whoever, they're all corrupt. Like everyone's seen. That guy that's from Sons of Anarchy, and of course his name escapes me right now, but played the Mormon main dude, like the John, whatever, the main Mormon guy.
Was not a fan of the show, so I couldn't even pull that one out of the ether.
Kim Coates, Coates. But good to have you back, Teel. What have you been up to? What's been going on?
Well, I got a novel out, Not Born of Woman, which I've been stumping around. Came out in November, which is what if the Frankenstein monster was a PI in New York City in 1939, and takes place just 2 weeks after the big Nazi rally in Madison Square Garden, and he gets hired to track down a Romani artifact, and so I've just turned in the second book in the series, Paradise Investigations from Macabre Inc. And I've been just writing my butt off. That's unfortunately, like, it's that dead time of the year where I'm not getting out of the house much. So I'm sitting in my word cave and just pecking away, getting stuff done.
And I've been digging through some Frankenstein stuff in comics lately. There's some weird stuff. Like I know there's Doc Frankenstein by the Wachowskis,
which is actually a really good series.
Yeah. And I didn't even know they wrote it, but I came across that by accident, and I'll have to pick it up. Seems like it's better to get the hardcover because it has extra story that's not in
it finishes it out. They didn't actually finish it. I have the hardcover. That's basically a sort of, if the Frankenstein monster was Doc Savage, pretty much. He gathers the misfits with him. Really good artwork too. Well, I think that the Frankenstein monster, I think it really resonates with a lot of people because he's not, the monster is really the doctor. The creature is this poor helpless victim. He didn't ask to be here. And then the guy who made him says, I don't care about you. It's like, wait a minute, somebody loved me. And so I think it resonates with a lot of people. They just did a female Frankenstein film that just came out. So I think a lot of people, it's funny, I finished the book, it got picked up, it came out while I was writing the second book, it came out in November, and then suddenly, like last half of last year, I saw half a dozen different Frankenstein projects. So I seem to have been right on the edge of that zeitgeist,
Yeah.
I think there's even Hollywood has been trying to redefine the the classic MGM Universal monsters.
Yeah.
And and they haven't really been doing it very well. The best thing that I remember is, and you probably remember Teel. I don't know about Jeffrey, but I know you're pop culture whiz. Forever Night was a revamping of the vampire, not to coin a phrase, but he was not a PI, but a policeman.
Yes,
and
he's trying to make up for the fact that he'd been chomping on people for 100 years or so.
Yeah, and I mean, but it brings the what era was that, the Victorian monster forward into today, gives it purpose. There's another one that it wasn't the monster type of deal, but it was the guy who played the first Mr. Fantastic in the Fantastic Four movie.
Oh, Ewan McGregor.
Ian Griffith.
Ian Griffith, yes.
And I forget the name of the show, but he plays an immortal who's he's not a policeman, but he's a police coroner, like Quincy and me, and he solves a lot of crime. So they're having very little success in bringing the old monster themes into today's.
Well, they just did a new Wolfman movie, which apparently is not kind of landing that well.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Yeah, it's like.
Yeah, again, we have an affinity for the unusual and for the outsider, and with all of these creatures, they're often more forces of nature than actually deliberately evil. They are creatures doing their thing. I mean, technically, even the old Night Stalker TV show.
Mm-hmm. Kolchak, the Night Stalker?
Yeah, Kolchak. But the original movie, the vampire in that is an absolute miserable, evil predator, but he's just doing what he needs to do to survive.
Yeah.
So it's, while he is our opponent, he's like our opponent in the sense that a hurricane would be, or a forest fire. It's just living its life. It's just doing its thing.
It is, it is what it is. It's basically neutral, but it is perceived as one side is good, one side is evil.
The whole thing with The Walking Dead, generally speaking, the zombies aren't the problem. It's crappy human beings.
It's all the gun wielding nuts. Oh, quick.
Yeah, so it tends to be a case of we use monsters to hold up a mirror to our own society and our own problems, to say, why are we this way? And
there's a really, really, really good, and I don't know which season, but it's later season of the Next Generation Star Trek, like 4, 5, 6, 7, like that late. And I don't remember the title again, but there's two species that are in conflict that encounter the Federation or the Enterprise, and one is a beautiful creature, and the other one is a fearsome looking like man lizard thing. And throughout the show, you are programmed, as we are, to be afraid of the scary looking one.
Yeah.
But he's the good guy in the show. You don't find out till the end, but he's the good guy throughout the whole thing. And once the Enterprise figures it out, they're like, "Oh, you guys, you got to stop."
Again, that's the flipping with the Frankenstein monster. Here's this 8-foot creature that looks terrifying, but he's literally just wants somebody to say it's okay. And it's the doctor who abandons him and then ultimately leads him to his own destruction in the Arctic. So I mean, it's that funhouse mirror to humanity. Monsters are there.
I came across this one thing. I think it was the Cullen guy is one of the comic creators, Cullen. But it's a Helheim, and it's like a Frankenstein Norse Viking comic that's older from Omni called Helheim. However you say that word in Norse. The name of it's Helheim. Then there's the Brides of Helheim. But it's interesting how many weird Frankenstein things there are. There's that Black Hammer, Dark Horse comic universe, and there's like a Frankenstein, a Legion of Evil, and he's like the main villain. And now there's Creature Commandos, which I seem to like the old stuff better, but I mean the new stuff's not terrible. It could be a lot worse, but I have the old graphic novel when they're like fighting Nazis and all that stuff, but now there's the cartoon that HBO, and it's got Frankenstein in it by David Harbour, and of course the bride and him hate each other, and that's every episode's like them about trying to kill each other.
For marriage.
Yeah, yeah. And then there's a guy that did a comic series on Kickstarter, Frankenstein Unconquered. He's coming on, Will Thompson, I believe.
And Wheatley, the artist, did Frankenstein Mobster.
Yeah, I have to check that out.
Which, again, it's just, we really are fascinated with this. It looks like us, but it's not us. And, it has some of our prejudices built in, but not necessarily all of them. And my Adam Paradise in Not Born of Woman, he's literally trying to figure out what it is to be human. And that's why he becomes a PI. So he can try to look at humans' problems, and then maybe he'll figure out what it is, what his humanity is. Well,
I mean, that's how we've actually studied ourselves in many different types of books and plays, and even just in reality by looking at the deepest, darkest, ugliest part of ourselves, and going from the bottom up. You see the worst of it until you find the best of it, and somewhere in between you find what's probably going to be average.
Yeah, what is achievable.
Yeah,
because we certainly can't all be Buddha, and we certainly all can't be all Christ-like. On the other hand, we don't really want to be the devil. Somewhere in between
sometimes it is so fun to be the devil.
Well, I've played nothing but bad guys in most of my career. Yeah. And while everyone says it's fun to play the bad guy because really you're unrestrained and you can just but if it's all you get, it actually gets just as boring as being good all the time.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think the old Greek saying is all things in moderation, including moderation.
Yeah.
There's got to be some level where, okay, like even when you're working out, you have to have a cheat day. Otherwise, it actually destroys your routine. We are not meant to be all of one thing. It's self-defeating. It's like the old trappers. There's a disease that used to get if they only ate rabbit. If they didn't eat enough vegetables or other things, they would actually get a form of scurvy from just eating rabbit protein. Yeah. It was something a lot because it was easy for a lot of the early settlers. That was an easy food source, and a lot of them didn't realize that they had to find other things. So, all of one thing is generally not good. Although, vanilla fudge ice cream, I could live on for a while.
Well, I mean, it's funny you bring up scurvy, which really, I mean, it decimated most navies and pirate ships. So they made a thing called grog, and what grog was a mixture of rum and lemon.
Yep.
And they thought that it was the rum mixed with just the rum. They had to put the lemon in there for flavor because it tasted nasty. But they thought it was just the rum that cured the scurvy, and it was the other way around. You could just eat the lemon, and you could pitch the rum overboard as ballast, and the lemon would have cured you. They didn't know
that's why they call them limeys.
Yeah,
that's why the Brits got called limeys. Yep. Because they needed that citric acid. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, here's another pirate fact. They used to call the ashes from the fire that fell into the food galley pepper. Which is also, I think, why when you're eating around a campfire, somehow it tastes better, and you would never put that in your mouth in a kitchen. But if stuff falls in it on a campfire, it tastes better. Gives it a little galley pepper.
Yeah, it gives it that freshly cooked on an open pit fire taste flavor.
It's carcinogenic, but who cares?
Yeah, right.
I came across Frankenstein Mobster, and I had to be careful. Comics are addictive.
You bring up here we are. What are we talking about? We've gone all the way through pirates and into scurvy and rum and the various ways of drinking rum with lemon.
One of the biggest things, I know we were talking about Thundercats a little bit, but one of the biggest things, and I don't know if you've heard about this, Teel, but one of the biggest things in comics that's been happening is Robert Kirkman, the guy that did the Walking Dead comic, is doing a whole Hasbro universe now of G.I. Joe and Transformers and Void Rivals, which is a new thing that he's doing. It's all in the same universe.
No, I didn't hear that. That's actually cool.
And it's really good. And they they started out. There's actually a new GI Joe series that's on like number 5 soon, and then there's Transformers, which is a new series that's on like 16 now or something. But they did these other little series. They did a Cobra Commander 5-issue series about his backstory that was really cool. But the weirdest thing about it is he's like human, but kind of messed up because of a bomb explosion. But he lived underground with like serpentine people in Antarctica. So it's really crazy, but it's actually pretty good. If you there, I know they're going to be releasing the graphic novels of it soon.
I love the old Larry Hama GI Joe comics from Marvel.
Yeah.
He did, his Snake Eyes stuff was great. So
yeah, he's still doing his regular series for Image now, but it's not part of that Robert Kirkman universe. It's like a separate thing. It may get into it at some point, but he also just put out a Larry Hama giant box set on Kickstarter of all the old Marvel GI Joes, and they have those now in compendium too. They're releasing them like one at a time.
That's cool.
Those are on Amazon and stuff. But one of the weirdest things, and I don't know if this is coming to retail, but it was Larry Hama made a number 1 issue comic called Werewolves versus Mounties, and that's basically.
I saw the Kickstarter launch for it, but I haven't followed it.
Yeah.
Basically, if Larry does it, it's going to be good. It's just the way it is,
I'm sure it's coming to retail at some point, but I got the first issue of it a while back, but I haven't got it yet. They haven't released it out yet. But yeah, that whole it's called the Energon universe. Like I think it's for the Transformers GI Joe thing, ENERGO. You could just put in Kirkman, Hasbro, Transformers GI Joe, a million things.
A theatrical release Transformer movie like 6 months ago, so they're definitely trying to like re-energize that franchise.
Yeah, not to make another pun.
Yes,
movie
or after what they call it, Energon, but the same thing.
There's a new.
The latest one was Transformers 1, and I haven't seen it. I have to go check it out. I hear it was pretty good. The animation looks, way good.
I was blown away by the animation on the What If series.
Oh yeah.
I mean, good Lord. I mean, I'd watch pretty much anything in that style of animation. It feels of a quality similar to the old Disney stuff for the completeness of it.
That Transformers movies has like a 90 on Rotten Tomatoes. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm going to at some point.
It's got a bunch of good voice actors in it too, who were having the time of their lives because most of them grew up on the Transformers. Yeah. So to get to voice characters that you watched when you were 9, so you could take your 9-year-old kid to see it is kind of cool.
If they would do the Robert Kirkman thing and make a movie or series or something,
I'm probably willing to bet you, my body weight in gold that's in their mind as they're doing it. Because
yeah, I'm sure.
Once something has been developed by a creator, the big guys look at the IPs he creates following it, particularly something that was as successful as The Walking Dead with this spin-offs at this point, TV series. So
yeah, he's supposed to be doing a Amber series, Roger Zelazny or something with Kirkman attached to it. I haven't heard anything else about it, but I'm familiar.
I'm surprised no one has done the Amber stuff because they were a very complete world, But a lot of that stuff people looked at and said, "Well, we can't do it. It's too high powered, too special effects laden, etc." And that's
not everybody, but that's the top voice cast for Transformers 1. Yeah, that's a pretty good list right there. Yeah. Hemsworth, Johansson, Buscemi, Ham. You got Fishburne, Michael K is pretty funny.
I saw an interview with him about this, and he absolutely loved doing it. So but it's one of those things where once you create an IP that has any kind of success, everything you do after that, people will look at that IP and go, okay, maybe I could do something with this, and then you start getting the agents that can get you in front of people who can make projects happen. So I mean, that's these days everyone's all about. Do you have an IP?
I'm definitely gonna have to watch it. Steve Buscemi, you got to do it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's a cool guy. I met him, and he's like the coolest dude. He really is. Just a real human being.
I imagine he would be pretty cool. Speaking earlier, we were talking about bringing monsters from the ancient stories to today's times. The show Grimm was very good, and at the time when I was watching it, they were on hiatus from season 4, maybe 5, but somewhere middle of somewhere towards the end of this year. I think it was only 7 seasons, but anyway, I was at a convention in Baltimore, and the gentleman who played not the cop, but his werewolf friend.
Yeah.
I sat next to him, and we traded stories and beers for about 2.5 hours before he went out to go find dinner.
Cool.
He was a very nice dude.
The thing is, everybody talks about actors being, dog eat dog world, but it really isn't. It's a dog help dog world, and it's rare you get to be successful if you're a complete dick.
Yeah,
it happens at times, and there are some, and some become that once they are successful. But more often than not, you're pulled along with the people who want to work with you, because when you're on a movie set, it isn't always necessarily I want the best guy there to be with me. It's like I'm going to be stuck with this guy for 6, 8, 10 weeks, 2 months. I want somebody that is going to be a team player and fun to be with, which is why when they do a lot of the Marvel stuff, when you see these guys off camera, they have developed a real camaraderie because it's like you're really putting together a team.
Yeah.
And they say a good director, the real key to, certainly in theater, the key to being a good director is just casting the right people that have the right chemistry.
You don't want to get Tom Hardy for 8 years on Mad Max.
Yeah, that story is pretty intense.
I don't know all of it, but I've seen enough little headlines about it. I don't know a lot about it.
Well, apparently, Charlize Theron had to hire a bodyguard to keep him away from her. They really, really didn't hit it off. And now this is the woman who was raised on a farm in South Africa, which means she's out shooting game. I wouldn't want to piss her off.
No.
Yeah.
So I mean,
scary.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with some crappy actors and some people who weren't pleasant, but more often than not, they're generally just trying to get along and do good work. I've met a couple really what I would consider stars, and they were just the nicest human beings. I did a TV pilot years ago with Catherine Hellman, from Who's the Boss and the wife.
I remember her. She's funny.
Oh my God, she was the sweetest human being in person. She knew the name of everyone in the crew by the second morning. She would say hello to everybody in person. She would eat with the extras. She did not want it. She wasn't one of these, I need to have my chair over here to, and that's been more the rule than the exception whenever I've met anybody who was a star. And, that's kind of the lesson. It's what Tom Selleck said when he worked on James Garner's Rockford Files. He played the perfect detective for 3 episodes. And he said he saw how Garner treated everyone in the crew and cast and how nice he was. And he made a point of saying, if I'm ever in, headline of a show, I want to be that guy, because it shows, there's a
I mean, it was a class show for one thing, but the actor himself was a classy dude. I mean, I never met the dude, but every time I ever seen him on the Johnny Carson back in the day, he was always very pleasant, and he would get people like you thought would be different on outside of their TV role, like Sanford and Sons, Red Fox.
Yeah,
the man's filthy outside of the role. You can't watch him after 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock.
Oh yeah, no, we worked blue all the time. Yes. Yeah,
he's terrible, filthy mouth dude. But James Garner was one of those guys that on Johnny Carson had just great, clean stories.
Yeah. No, he was, and I said I've never heard a bad story about him. I've heard him standing up for people, on the movie sets where they're being bullied by a director or whatever, and he said, would get in the way, and I'm like, yeah, I mean that's what you want to be. You want ultimately, no matter what job you're on, you want to be a good human being, because that's all that ultimately matters. How many pairs of shoes can you own? How much fame can you suck up? If you're not a good person, it comes back.
Yeah. Right.
What's a few of your roles that you can share with us, like some of the villain ones or any of the others?
I mean, I've played so many bad. I've been like wife beaters and rapists and just horrible human beings. I did a soap opera once where they had me carrying one of the longtime heroes up a flight of stairs into a plane because his character was being written out of the show, so he was going to be like taken back to Russia or something. And his wife in the show was like pleading with me and crying, and I had to slam the door in her face. And I felt like the meanest heel in the universe. I got nasty letters from it. People found me in supermarkets and like, how dare you do that thing? And I did a Spencer for Hire episode where I got to call Hawk a clown and he beat the snot out of me. And, I deserved it. I mean, you call him a clown, you deserve it. Let's face it. But I played Dracula on stage. I've done, I played every monster but a werewolf. I've been a mummy. Well, technically I was a werewolf in something, but I wasn't in wolf form. It was like a low budget pilot. We were supposed, I was like part of the pack. But that's fine. I don't really want to do all that furry makeup if I can avoid it anyway.
Yeah.
But,
how was the mummy? What'd you have to do for the mummy? You just like,
I did a movie called The Bog Creatures. And I played the weird Scottish caretaker on this castle, but I also was the principal playing all there was like 4 or 5 monsters, and every time I was always the close-up monster in the bog makeup, which was it was a minimal outfit with like a ghillie suit over it, and then this monstery makeup. Hilarious. There's a scene where they're throwing these vials of stuff which are supposed to dissolve the monster, and a woman throwing it at me. At one point, the director says, "No, I'll throw it. You want to be accurate. You don't want to, hurt him." And the first shot he throws, it goes off and hit me right between the eyes and knocked me down on my knees. And he was like, "Oh my God, I'm sorry." And I said, "Okay, what did I do to upset you, Chris? What did I?" But it was really cool because you get to be a monster. And I did that picture I did with Debbie Rochon, who's one of the Scream Queens, hardest working lady in horror movies. But I mean, I played. Like I said, I did a movie. A lot of stuff got cut, but I was an evil slave owner from the 1780s. Yeah, but he was like purposely evil. It wasn't like, oh, I didn't realize I was doing something wrong. He was like, I'm doing this because I hate you. And that was really hard to do because I was the only white guy on the set. And when the director called me up, the director-writer called me up and said, "I got a great part for you, man." I'd known him for years. And I read the script and I said, "Really? This is how you think of me?" He says, "I know you can do it. And I know it won't be you, so it'll be cool." That was really weird. I went into at one point, we were shooting in a church that Sojourner Truth had used on the Underground Railroad back in the day. And so I'm in there spouting these lines, words that I could never say in real life. And I actually went into the nave of the church and I said a little prayer and said, "Look, I'm playing him bad. Trust me. I'm trying to honor you with this." Because, sometimes you play stuff that's, was it when Marlon Brando played the head of the American Klan at one point, somebody asked him, "How could you play a guy who is so opposite you, who was so wrong?" And his answer was he didn't think he was wrong. And when you're playing a villain, you have to believe it. Nobody thinks they're the villain in their life.
Yeah.
Nobody thinks that they're wrong. They might think that they're not good enough to be or something, but they always think their decision is correct. So that's the one reason it's freeing to play a villain, because you play a character who really has very few doubts. Most heroes doubt. Most heroes they're not sure they could do this. Oh, I don't know if it's within me. But most villains are like, "Yeah, I can do this because I deserve it." And but I also have a thing that I believe you can tell who the villain is in a movie early on, because villains always pause. Heroes want to get all the information out, but villains want you to listen. So they make you lean in. It's sort of a Vincent Priceism.
Yeah, they want you to see them doing it, whatever it is that they're getting ready to do.
Yeah, so I mean, Vincent Price is one of my heroes for this stuff. I want to do more Vincent Price type horror movies because, you know, he was a classic. He was often better than the material, or he raised the material whenever he was in it.
Yeah,
and and he had fun doing it. And again, none of it was him. You know, it was you could get to put on a completely different character, and that's the fun part of the acting stuff. But yeah, there was a point where I stopped doing horror movies because I didn't want that to be the only thing my daughter ever saw of me when she grew up. And then I did a couple of instructional videos and I played neutral roles. I said, okay, now I can go back to doing horror movies because my daughter will at least see what I was like when I wasn't dissecting women, you know. Are you, so.
What did you end up doing that was G-rated or PG?
I played like a cartoony villain in something called The Black Cougar. I was like the spoiler, and I was kind of a silly villain. And I did I played a couple of cops on soaps, so they were kind of neutral roles. And they did an instructional DVD on stage combat. My one of the things as an actor is I became an expert at swords. I started under Errol Flynn's last stunt double. And so I would go back and forth between choreographing fights and being in the shows and what have you. And so I did an instructional tape. So she got to see me it was a bunch of my lectures that had been videotaped. So she could see what I was like when I wasn't a freaking psychopath. You know, I did one horror movie where we had to have a heart that we ripped out of a victim. And so they actually got a calf heart. We had to cut it down to look human heart size because when we brought it in, I'm like, this heart's bigger than the head of the actress. This cannot have come out of her chest. Yeah. On low budget movies, you don't have, you take what you can get and then improvise. But that movie was the first movie in the history of cinema where the woman was tied to a log and sent down a buzzsaw and no one saved her.
Oh, wow.
Igor and the Lunatics, one of the great bad movies of all time.
I think I've seen that one.
It's pretty horrible, but my whole thing is I've been in a lot of really bad movies, but I've always given the best performance I could. It's you do the best job, and then because even when you do a really good job, you don't know how they're going to edit it. Mm-hmm. You don't know what they're going to leave out of the movie. The one where I was saying I was the slave owner, I shot a lot of stuff, and by the time it made it to the final cut, I'm in the movie for like a minute and a half. And that happens. I mean, what Kevin Costner's scenes were cut out of the big chill. There's only like one brief shot of him on the table dead. And it happens. You just never, movies change once you're on the set, and scripts change, characters get added, characters get lost, and you kind of just got to show up every day and do the best you can, and I don't think I've ever been on anything that had enough budget to go back and do a reshoot where they could fix something where they missed it or they had to add something. It's always like, get her done and let's get out of here. 6-day wonders, 10-day wonders,
Have you been on any trauma stuff? That stuff?
Yeah, that's Igor and the Lunatics was shot independent, but Trauma picked it up.
Nice.
I'm in Trauma's War. I get killed 18 times in Trauma's War as different characters. My buddy was on one day more than me, and he died 22 times. And then I'm the stunt double and fight choreographer for Citizen Toxin. Anytime he's fighting the noxious offender, anytime you see the back of one of them, that's me. I did the drag. I did a fire burn in it. I did a shot where I'm hit by a truck, and then I choreographed the fight we did at the end.
Nice.
So, and it's just, you do what you do and you keep rolling.
It's fun. That's fun stuff. I want to see that new Toxic Avenger. For some reason, where is it? Like you would think it would have released by now. The newest one
apparently it was deemed unreleasable, which I'm like, how bad does a movie have to be with Peter Dinklage in it to be unreleasable?
But now, did it come out at all and just didn't come out?
It was finished. I think it was shown at like one horror festival, and then now my suspicion, it might be bad, and it might be not even. I mean, it might be not bad enough to be good, but it's probably some sort of behind the scenes political stuff. It's probably some investor fighting with another investor. I don't know for sure, but usually when you have a film that's done, no matter how bad it is, somebody will. I mean, Tubi exists, somebody will see it. And like I said, Peter Dinklage, he's one of those guys. Again, everything he's in, he elevates.
Yeah,
everything he's in, he does a great job.
Here's the cast for it. Give me just a second here. I'll show it to you.
That Macon Blair dude makes good stuff. I mean, Blue Ruin, Green Room. I think I saw Murder Party. I don't think I saw Gold.
There they are. Yeah, Peter Dinklage, Elijah Wood. I mean,
again, I've met Elijah Wood. I worked at a haunted house at one point, and he came through. I got to chase him with a chainsaw. He was the coolest dude. He loves horror movies. He loves low-budget horror movies. He produced it.
Cool.
And
he's doing a whole new comic situation. A company called High Strangeness with Omni is supposed to be coming out at some point. And
I mean, he's an incredibly nice young man. And I say young man because I'm an old fart now, but just a really nice dude. But yeah, like I said, I think it's probably some sort of political or financial shenanigans rather than it's unreleasable. I'm sorry. These days, you can release anything, and you can always fix it with CGI or recutting. There's nothing that's unreleasable. So, but yeah, I mean, Peter, just Peter, Kevin Bacon, and Elijah alone, those three would be names enough to make people go to a movie.
There was a Coyote Acme movie that didn't release either.
And again, that was political shenanigans. They said we're going to take a financial loss on it, and they shelved that, the Batgirl movie, and something else. And the Batgirl movie was like 90% done, but the Coyote movie was 100% done, and they still decided to take a loss on it rather than release it. And word was, it was very good. So a lot of it has to do with movie studios now are usually run by bean counters as opposed to people who wanted to make movies. People who got into it because they love film and they love storytelling. And now they get into it because they see it as a financial investment. Well, it's like, look, we bought comic books because we like to read them. But there are those people who buy comic books as investments. They never read them. They're in the sealed containers, and they only go by grade, and they couldn't care less about the content. And there's a lot of people like that who are in the movie or at the financial end of the movie business. They only look at the numbers, not, you don't get people who are like David Lynch or Mel Brooks or Peter Jackson who love film, or Scorsese who love film. And they have to go to beg the money people to give them money to make movies. And these are the guys who are doing it. But, I rail against the tower. Yeah.
What was your book you did on? Wasn't there something about Vlad the Impaler?
I did. The book that won Best Novel was Cowboy in Carpathia, which is what if Robert E. Howard did not commit suicide? And he goes on to have adventures. And in the first book, there's 3 of them so far, he gets to meet Dracula. And, of course, he's from Texas, so he does them in because you don't want to mess with Texas. And then the current book is Not Born of Woman, which is the Frankenstein monster. I like working with mythos. What can I say? The second book in that is The Cowboy and the Conqueror, which is Robert E. Howard goes up against Cthulhu with an evil Winston Churchill. So using only quotes from Churchill whenever he's on screen. So, yeah, I said I love working with those.
I really want to see the new Nosferatu. I haven't had a chance to yet, but I'm waiting for it to come home.
There's a Nosferatu on Tubi as well that was made last year. No, in 23. It's not that great, but what's interesting is that Greg, what's his face? Oh my God, the actor who did the monsters in Pan's Labyrinth, Jones.
Yeah, you're talking that Demeter ship one you're talking about. The Demeter.
No. It's him playing Count Orlok, and the rest of the movie, it didn't do much for me. But he plays Orlok in it, and it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. I mean, he plays monsters incredibly well. I had the Demeter one is a separate film, but this is actually Nosferatu, a Symphony of Violence or something, or Symphony of Horror.
I gotta find it. That's the name of the old one. I mean, Symphony of Horror. Like, there's something.
From 20.
I went looking for the Toxic Avenger 2023 movie, the reboot with Peter Dinklage. It appears that they say it's unreleasable still, and it's not available on like Amazon or any other.
Yeah, like I said, I suspect financial shenanigans more than quality problems. I mean, I've been in films that have taken like 4 or 5 years to get released, and it used to be not unusual for that to happen because of financial issues. But you would think with names like that, you could go to any bank and get a completion bond and say, put her out. Or some distributor would say, what? Bacon Dinklage and
Glad you would, yeah.
Let's go. And release it. So like I said, I suspect while it might not be a great film, there's almost nothing these days is unreleasable. It's just may not be a great film, but who cares with those guys in it?
Well, I mean, if you get any kind of like streaming service and just look at the free movies, there are such horrible things coming out of Hollywood that, I mean, and they're really they do them to test an aspect of a bigger budget movie like the Transformers. They want to test a certain aspect of the CGI or what have you. But the movies are terrible. You can't watch enough of it to.
And a lot of them are made in various states who have money gives back. So they're like, okay, we can get X amount if we raise 30% of the budget, we can get 70% of the budget from the state government or whatever, and we can get various give backs. So it becomes again an investment opportunity. What surprises me is that there are so many low budget Westerns being made now. Everybody thinks the Western's like gone, except for something like Western American Primeval. But there's like 2 or 3 or 4 Westerns a month being released. Somebody's watching them somewhere, and somebody's paying for them. Some of them are not bad, but they're all low budget, made in Arizona or Montana or Utah or what have you, with local crews. And now after the fires, there's not going to be a hell of a lot made in LA for a while. It's all going to be Vancouver, Atlanta, New Orleans,
Georgia. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But a lot of after I did a film, what the hell was it called? I did a film in New Orleans, like, I don't know, 15 years ago. And it was right after the big hurricane when everything was wiped out. And what they had done was they went in and the investment money built like brand new studios in New Orleans. And they actually had newer equipment than Hollywood at that point, which is why there was a period of time, maybe about 8 years or 9 years, where it seemed like everything was being made in New Orleans because there was a lot of government givebacks and they all had really good facilities. So they did a bunch of Stallone movies and they've been, Statham movies that could have been shot anywhere. They shot them in New Orleans. And then they had a couple of New Orleans TV shows, and it was all because the facilities were there. Now Georgia's that way. Marvel has basically allowed Georgia to between them, Marvel and Tyler Perry, they've built up this huge theatrical colony.
You can hardly find a television show or game show without the Georgia Film Institute logo at the end of the bottom credits.
For a while in the 80s, it was Florida. They did a lot of stuff at Universal Studios, like the Superboy TV series and a bunch of other shows.
Buena Vista,
And then they stopped giving state givebacks, so everybody went, okay, goodbye, because people go where it's cheaper to make it. I mean, that's unfortunately the reality, which is why so many runaway productions go to Canada or Prague or South Africa.
Well, New York is also a prime source. New York, a lot of crews go because it's hard to get a permit to use tripods in the city.
Yes,
particularly in the streets and the sidewalks. So if you see any show that's done in New York, it's almost all of it is over the shoulder work.
Yeah,
and if it's not a steady cam, that it's good work because those guys aren't like.
Oh yeah. I worked with a guy, Matt Howe, on a couple of pictures, and the guy was a human tripod. Before Steadicam, this guy was just amazing. And he did 35 millimeter, and he was just astounding with stuff. So he did bog creatures. So but the thing with New York, again, New York has great givebacks, and they at one point I know Dick Wolf was going to take his Law and Order shows to Toronto because they were cutting the givebacks away. And he'd gone as far as renting studio, and this is in the 80s, so it's a long time ago. Nobody's around. But they opened up offices in Toronto and were ready to move when the unions all realized, oh my God, he's serious. We better deal with him. And they came to an agreement and kept the shows here in New York. And it's a cottage industry. I think I may be the only New York actor who's never worked on any of the Law and Order shows.
Wow.
Because at the point where he was doing them, I was working a lot of soaps and then Ren fairs. So I never even went for the casting calls. Also, I'm 6'6".
Yeah.
So for me to get cast in a Law and Order show, I'm going to be way, way in the background because they don't want me around their actors making.
Yeah, you're either going to be a serial killer or like the background cop that beats the dude up and takes him in.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's why they cast me for Spencer for Hire. They wanted a big guy so that when Hawk beat the crap out of me, it was impressive. You know, because even though I was taller than Avery Brooks, I swear to God, the man's energy was like he came to the set.
He's a big dude, though. He really is. Even at his age now.
He's about 6 foot, but he projects 8 foot. He came to the set, and I thought, oh, wow, Hawk, he's cool. Then he went in and he changed into his Hawk outfit, which was even cooler than what he was wearing. But he was so smooth, and his energy was just. I don't think I've ever worked with an actor who projected more power. So it was totally understandable.
He projected that as the lead on Deep Space Nine. But I got to ask you this: back then, did he have eyebrows? Because he didn't have them on Deep Space Nine.
Well, he I know for the first part of Deep Space Nine, they kind of softened him, and they finally let him be Hawk in space. Once he shaved and shaved his head and went, then he would. That's when it got good. Deep Space Nine took a year or two to get it.
I agree.
Because it really started out as Gunsmoke in space.
Yeah.
And
Train to the Stars. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was kind of weak, but I watched it because it was what was on. It was there, but it got really good. By the third season, it was pretty cooking.
Yeah.
So I feel that way about. I'm one of the few. I like Trek, but the Next Generation, I watch them, but they often left me unsatisfied. I think there's probably 10 or 15 really good episodes, and the others are okay. But those really good ones, there might be only 2 a season, but they kind of made up for it for me.
Well, but even that, when they had some really good concepts, they never did bring them back. Like one of the best episodes, I think, is an episode called Tin Man, where the Federation Deep Space probe had found a spaceship or some kind of device. They think it's a device that's near a star that's about to go nova, and they want to find out what it is. And somehow a psychic is in contact with this device. So the Federation sends him with the Enterprise to go find out what this thing is and bring it back if they can. And it turns out to be a living creature that lives in space, works like a spaceship, and has a symbiotic bond with its crew who have died, and is trying to commit suicide. fantastic concept, great idea. Never hear about this. I mean, the guy at the end of the show disappears. Never hear from him again. He would have been the awesome guy to come back in the end of the Borg battle and be like,
yes.
destroy the Borg.
They did this phenomenal story about, they discover that the reason that the Klingons, the humans, the Romulans, and the Vulcans all look similar is that they were all seeded by the same race, and there's a code in our DNA that lets them go back to the source.
Yeah.
And when they put all of them together, it gives them the coordinates to go back and see this maker species go, my children, if you're seeing this, it works. We have left something. And then they never talk about it again. I'm like, that's the most brilliant idea for a feature film. And to riff off of, and again, gone. So, and that's what I mean. They have something like that was so brilliant. The one they did about language, Shaka with his arms thrown wide.
Yeah, Shaka, yeah.
And again, it may be the only link.
They're all talking metaphors, and it took them forever. And I still don't know how that language works. What metaphors are they? I don't get it.
But it may be the only linguistic science fiction ever made. And again, they never explored it. What a great concept to come back. So a lot of times they blunted their own force.
Well, but even when they flesh something out altogether, and I've met the man. I think he's probably passed now. But Mark Okrand was commissioned by what's the director's name? The guy that did the second movie, Nicholas Best.
Oh yeah, Nicholas Meyer.
Nicholas Myers, thank you. Nicholas Myers, not Nicholas Best. Yeah. Nicholas Myers he had Mark Okrand develop the language for the Klingons for the movie series, and the guy actually he's got a syntax, he's got a dictionary, he's got an encyclopedia, and people have actually learned the language. Hardcore.
I've been in a room with a woman singing torch songs in Klingon.
You haven't experienced opera until you've heard it in the original Klingon. I guarantee you.
Exactly.
But they developed the whole thing, and they have this great. And they hardly used it on the movies and the TV shows anymore. I mean, like a couple of words that everybody knows.
Yeah.
And
Kapla.
Yeah. I went up to Mark at one of the conventions. It was the year the first edition of the book came out. And in the movie, one of the Klingon the lackeys, one of the the strong arm guys, he goes, and I couldn't find that anywhere in the dictionary. So I was like, hey, dude, what does that mean? He's like, look it up. I'm like, really? You're right there. And I've read this book 100 times. He wouldn't tell me. And I still don't know to this day what that guy said, but it's
honor to your house.
It's the scene. It's the scene where they find Spock's torpedo tube and the big snake thing. The captain grabs it. When he grabs it, the guy says, and I'm sure it probably is something like, what the bleep bleep is that?
It's probably,
I don't know what the bleep bleep part is.
Probably in the offensive appendix.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I mean, like I said, I've read the book several times. I still don't know what those bad words are, but again, to Hollywood's demise, they have these, these great concepts. Never fall back on them. Never use them again. They have these great things that they concept all the way from from not just from concept, but to they flesh it out to an actual working language, and they only use 24 words out of the whole dictionary.
Well, look, they wrote a half a dozen scripts for a Captain Sulu series, and never used them. Mm-hmm. I mean, Hollywood is famous for kind of developing and then cock blocking themselves. Again, it usually comes down to somebody looking at the bean counter and going, too expensive.
Yeah, no one's going to buy an Asian man, an Asian gay man as the leader of.
I mean, thank God now. At least
Navy
at least with the way the effects are now, and again, they're shooting it all in Canada because it's cheaper. But the way the effects are now, they are freer to do more high budget looking things for reasonable budgets. I mean, that was the thing that killed them in Trek.
Well, you bring up the example of Canada. Kelowna, Canada is a city that became a science fiction planet in the Stargate series, filmed near that place. but if you look at the Stargate series, that they were able to expand their budget for special effects because they didn't have to pay for a lot on facilities.
Yeah, well,
the facilities were there. They didn't have to pay rent or anything like that.
When I went up to Vancouver, I auditioned for the Highlander TV series. I didn't get it because I wasn't famous enough. But but I swear to God, driving into the city, I kept going, "Oh, that's where that immortal was killed. That's where that immortal was killed. That's where that immortal was killed." But yeah, it's true. In old Hollywood, all countries looked like Bronson Canyon or the Corriganville Ranch, and in all Canadian science fiction shows, all alien planets look like Vancouver.
Vancouver, Canada, yeah, and that's where Kelowna is a city just outside of Vancouver,
yeah, and because they have access to the.
Oddly enough, the same thing. This same, let's just call it an outdoor set, is used for Star Trek is Vasquez Rocks in California. Those ones with all the angle where the first.
You know what's funny is if you go to Vasquez Rock, if you look this way, you see Vasquez Rock. If you look this way behind you, it's a little shack and a corral.
Yeah.
And it's literally right there, but they frame it out 90% of the time, except in a couple of low-budget westerns where they'll use that shack and corral. Yeah. But it's hilarious. It's like, oh my God, this is well, that cave in Bronson Canyon, it doesn't even go all the way through. It's just a little, it's not really a cave. It's sort of and it keeps falling down. But you can go there and like, you can stand where 1 million shows have been shot because it's easy for them to get to. It's in Griffith Park. Although now, good God, it's probably gone. You know?
Yeah, that's a shame that some of the actual outdoor places that have been made famous by TV shows are fading away. I don't know how Boulder, Colorado looks now, but in the 80s, Mork and Mindy, they would show the main drag thoroughfare through Boulder where the Mindy's father's,
all of the establishing shops.
Yeah, I drove by the house. I drove by the shopping. They're on the same street, by the way, and they're right. I mean, you go down the street, there's the shopping center. Well, another half mile or a mile down the road.
The house for Archie Bunker is still in Queens.
Yeah,
I mean, sometimes real things that the Ghostbusters firehouse is an actual working firehouse.
I think it's actually been turned into a museum now.
It has, it was, but it's now a museum.
Yes, even after the movie, it was still a working firehouse.
Yeah, still they like rented it for the time of the shoot. But and it's again, it's one of those things where like you feel like you're stepping into part of the history of it.
Very cool.
On reality of it,
Here's a cool side story I can give you. The library they used, I don't remember the name of it, but I had to go to it when I was in school in Connecticut. For one of our humanities classes, the teacher made us, go to New York, go to this library.
Library, yeah.
Yeah, I had to do my research in this library, and it's got the lions are just so cool. Anyway, so I was researching for several hours. I was getting bored. My eyes were getting tired. I was like, I got to go outside. I'm going to have a cigarette. So I walk out the library, go to the corner of the street, and stand there by the pole. I'm not going to cross. I'm just going to stand there and smoke a cigarette. And I'm like, you know what? I'm bored. So I just look up, and I just fix on a corner of the building across the street, and that's what I look at the whole time. And I smoke my cigarette. And out of the corner of my eyes, I'm doing this number, and within moments, a New Yorker comes by and he goes and like grabs my eyes with his eyes, and he fixates on a point up there, and I'm like,
yeah.
And my head does not move at all. The whole 7-8 minutes I'm smoking a cigarette. Within 30 seconds, there's 15-20 people watching me watch this building. And then I kind of slink into the background, like behind them, like a thief.
Yeah.
Go up to the library, and just before I finish and throw my cigarette away, I look out at the corner, flick the cigarette, and those same 15-20 people are still looking up at the building.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, what on earth do they think I was looking at? And I'm gone. Why are they still there?
Welcome to the herd mentality. The hilarious thing is, I remember a Batman comic book from when I was like 8 or 9. I needed to find out who in the crowd was Catwoman in disguise.
Yeah.
So Batman stands there and looks up, and everybody starts looking up, and they find her because she doesn't have an Adam's apple. And that stuck with me all these years later. And every time I see that kind of thing, I think of that joke. But it's true. If you look up in New York, everyone will look because, and particularly now since 9/11, they assume something bad's about to happen.
Nine times out of 10, they're looking for a jumper. They think you see a jumper. Yeah.
So,
I don't know how I don't know how I missed that Doug Jones Nosferatu. I'd heard about it, but I didn't know it like came out. I found it, so I'm definitely not going to look at that.
It's like I said, it fails in a lot of ways, but every time he's on screen, he's magnificent. He's just awesome. And again, it's a case of he never, anything he's in goes up to it rises level wise,
What do you think about Nosferatu having a mustache? That's the controversy I hear. He has a mustache.
Vlad Tepes had a mustache.
Yes.
And
that guy's a good filmmaker. Eggers is a good filmmaker.
I just watched
separate mustachio and a separate spike. That's a mustache.
I just watched The Northman. And it's very much in his wheelhouse. Dark, moody, gothic, so I'm sure it's actually well done.
You know what it's supposed to be good. I want to see it. Do you know what that dude's doing next? Labyrinth.
Yes.
A remake of Labyrinth.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm like, that could be bad because
he's good though. He does good. Everything he's made's been good.
Childhood classic favorite. I enjoyed the movie.
Well, the thing is, if he gives it enough of a different spin where it's not a remake, but it's a rethinking, okay, because I mean, the case of just remaking it is like, I'm sorry, Peter Jackson's King Kong wasn't better than the original, wasn't all that much more interesting. And just because you love something doesn't mean you can do it better.
It was a better story.
Yes, it was more complex, but and it's
not the original.
Well, I'm looking at everything that guy's Eggers has done. Everything he's done has been good. So I think he'll do something different, hopefully. Yeah. Got William Dafoe in A Lighthouse farting drunk. So you can't get any better than that.
Yeah. Well, again, William Dafoe, if he shows up, it's going to be good work. There's like they said, like the old actor Robert Conrad, William Conrad. He did. He was canon, but he was one of those guys who never gave a bad line reading. Anything he ever did, it was good. It was sort of the same, but it was good. But, some people just they show up and they do the job right. I
saw that old biker movie with Dafoe, The Loveless. I'd never seen it before. That was a weird little movie. Like, digging back.
He was, he basically had sort of an experimental theater company in New York, and he likes to go to the outlier projects. He likes interesting stuff. And, I mean, like when he came back as the Green Goblin, he found a way to make it completely new and interesting, you know? And that's what you want. An actor who like climbs into it, but it doesn't mess him up. He's not method where it destroys the rest of his life. And he's got to actually snort drugs and all the rest of this.
He was in Shadow of the Vampires Nosferatu. That was amazing.
Yes.
He was great. That was amazing.
Yes. And again, he played it. He had fun playing the bad guy. Like, why couldn't you eat the script, girl? I'll get to her later. Like, come on, like, yes, he had fun doing it. And that's the whole point is if it stops being fun, you might as well sell shoes like Al Bundy. It's too hard a business to keep doing it if it's miserable.
I noticed John Malkovich has had some flops as far as some pirate show. I didn't watch it all, but I started to watch it. And it wasn't bad, but I know it got canceled or something. But I saw something recently he's in where he's a cult leader, but I can't remember the name of it or who it's by, but some new thing where he's a cult leader.
There's so many platforms now, I can't keep track of them,
There's too many.
The problem with television nowadays, and it's all because of cable. And it's cable is still like it, even though you don't really actually get cable. Cable is like if you go to Xfinity or Verizon, you get like a stick or a streaming platform that just kind of gives you the same effect. But back in the day, you had to pay for package A, and package A was usually like your local channels and like 30 some different other channels. But if you wanted like the TBS and TNT, that was another package. If you wanted the History Channel or Game Show Network, so you get another package. If you wanted HBO or one of the paid services, it was you can get another.
Now it's streaming.
But yeah, it's streaming. And I kept saying to him when I was buying cable from Comcast, who became Xfinity and whatnot, I was saying, why don't you guys just give me piecemeal, like a la carte?
Give me what I want.
These 15 channels. This is the only channels I watch. These 15. Let me buy these 15 channels, and I'll pay for them. One. If they had done that back in the 80s, they'd have a monopoly on it, and streaming services wouldn't be as they are. Now you're paying twice as much for cable with all these different streaming services.
Yep. And every once in a while, one of them will come to a disagreement with like a broadcast channel and just stop showing that channel because
some of them have exclusive to content that you can't get on another. Like you can only get Star Trek on the Paramount streaming service and like one or two others, and that's it.
Yeah. No. Well, I look back at the time in the 50s where you could have a show like Uncle Milty, where like 60 or 80% of America was watching the same show. There were 2 or 3 channels, and Water Cooler was always a show everybody else had seen. Now you can name half a dozen shows, and I'm like, what? Where was that? And I love this stuff. What channel is that on? Where is that showing?
Yeah.
And
how do I get it?
Fragmented. Yeah. And there's, you could have a show that runs for 7 or 8 years, and most people have never heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, being a video file or a film buff like I am,
I'm the same. Yeah, me too.
Again, it's why I appreciate things like YouTube or Tubi, where you can watch old stuff and watch a lot of them. You don't have to hunt around.
But I like TV has a lot of good paranormal stuff. Small Town Monsters, they do a lot of Dogman stuff. I've had them on the show a lot. That they make documentaries and that stuff, but that's a good source for that kind of stuff. I watch a lot of it.
I liken Tubi to being the really interesting video store down the block from the 80s. It has all the really interesting stuff that maybe it's not high end, but it's fascinating.
And the only problems I have with Tubi and Pluto, they're fantastic. They're free, but they don't have enough. They haven't sold enough commercial space. So some of the shows that you watch, there's a little bit of a commercial, or they have especially with the free. I think it's Tubi. It's like almost like the effect of the Millennium Falcon. You have the stuff like and it's weird music coming at you. It's almost like gets you dizzy. Pluto does the same thing, and it's like it's just it gets in your brain. It's like the destructive earworm. I'm like, just please sell some more commercial space, because I love to watch the Star Trek channel on Pluto. Is fantastic.
Yeah.
They don't have sold enough commercial time for it, so it has just the Pluto logo and this annoying sound.
Yeah. Yeah, but on the other hand, we get to see it.
You still get to watch it. Yes.
I was lucky. I grew up in the New York area where we had the 3 networks and 3 local channels and a couple of UHF channels. I have friends who grew up and they had 1 station.
Yeah, that's what I grew up in DC. So we had in Washington DC, we had Channel 4, Channel 5. The three big ones were Channel 4, Channel 7, and Channel 9. That's ABC, CBS, and NBC. Channel 5 was WTTG, was an independent, and WDCA Channel 20 was an independent on the UHF scale. And then we had 22 and 24 and 26 for the PBS stations. But on a good day, if it was just cloudy enough, Baltimore would bounce in, and we'd get Channel 13, 11, and 9 from Baltimore, which was pretty cool too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I remember those days. And like I said, I was blessed to have all of these stations available.
Yeah.
That a lot of my friends didn't have, and so later on, I'd meet them years later.
Those were the areas that got cable first. We didn't get cable in the Washington D.C. area until like the 90s.
Well, yeah, I was one of the last.
My cousins in Ohio, which had, like you said, the 1 station, which probably was like Cincinnati.
Yeah,
they're in Youngstown. They got cable and MTV and all that. And we were so jealous. We were like, why can't we have it? Guess what? Because they hadn't laid the cable in our area yet. Didn't come into like 80. I graduated high school and cable showed up.
Yeah. And wait a minute. I needed it. Does one have something to do with the other?
Yeah, it was it was a causality effect. I'm certain it was once they knew I didn't.
Hey, Jay just froze in Chronospace. But there's some. Have you ever heard of Mimesis Nosferatu? It looks like a crappy Nosferatu, but I've never seen it. It's called Mimesis. Mimesis, like Mime. It's on Tubi. It looks definitely.
I go through a lot of the like anthology horror movies and stuff, and the low end stuff. Some of it's because I know a lot of the people who made the stuff in the last 20 years.
I think Jay's being probed right now by aliens.
Well, he's not silent, so
But yeah, I'll check it out. I'm trying to think. There was something I was going to ask, and then Jay froze, and I forgot it for a second. But I love that Werner Herzog Nosferatu. That's a good one. That was haunting.
Yeah, and I remember him saying at one point, that Kinski was weirder than he even imagined he could be.
I bet that's a weird one. Oh, I know what I was going to ask. We still get Spenguli down here in Florida. I think that's the only one at all. Who did you grow up on? Some of those kind of personalities.
I grew up on oh, good Lord, it just went out of my brain.
I had Elvira and him. That's the only ones I know of.
I grew up on oh my God, I did a movie with him and I can't remember his name. He was a DJ out of Philly. And he was good God.
Well, maybe that's
Zachary. I was trying to think it's his real name, but and I did a movie with him, but I'm not in any scenes with him. I did Dr. Terror's House of Erotic Idiots, which is a spoof of horror movie anthologies. But I grew up with Zachary, and he had his wife was in like a laundry basket, who's like an amoeba, and he would cut himself into the movies. There'd be like a scene in a graveyard, and then they'd cut to a shot of him peeking up behind the tombstone, and he'd go back down, and they would just pop it in, and it was hilarious. And I didn't get Svengoolie here in New York until about 5 years ago, and now I'm a regular devotee. But
we had a guy in DC. He was on Channel 20. He was like the station manager or something. I forget. But he created two characters. He had Captain 20, which was he kind of wore. If you remember the Ghostbusters base uniform.
Yeah. We've lost you again.
Sorry, I hit the wrong button. I was trying to put my camera on.
Yeah.
It was like a tan jumpsuit. Well, that's what Captain 20 wore, but he had a Captain Kirk patch right here and Spock ears. That was Captain 20, and then he was also like a vampire figure. I forget his vampire figure name, but at night at 11:30, on the Saturday night they had the horror show. He would play the vampire, with the vampire voice and all that, and he would host 2 or 3 horror movies Saturday night and into Sunday.
Well, a billion years ago, I auditioned for when they were looking for Captain USA, when they were first going to do video blogging on the cable stations. So I guess that was the late 70s, early 80s, whatever. I mean, obviously I didn't get it, but that's like my model was I'd grown up with Zachary, so that's what I was going for, But they, I love the idea of the host who's into the product and who talks about the background and is loves it as opposed to hates it or makes fun of it, has fun with it, but Zachary was one of these guys, they started out with some bad stuff and he was like, it was almost like Count Floyd from SCTV. He knew it was a dog of a movie, so then he could have fun with it as opposed to a classic,
I've never heard of Zachary. I looked him up. It's pretty interesting. I'll have to dig deeper.
I have a trivia question for you, which is sort of related but unrelated. If you can know, tell me who is the man or actor or person who live actioned the first Bozo the Clown and Ronald McDonald.
He became a weatherman on one of the network shows. I can see his face. I can't remember it.
Willard Scott.
Willard Scott. He used to announce the birthdays of people. Yes.
The local Willard Scott was the local weatherman in Channel 4 WDC. Or no, sorry. what is it?
NBC in New York.
No, he's from DC.
Okay, but he did. He was. I remember him on the shows here, so I guess they broadcasted out of there. But
no,
yeah,
each city had their own franchisee Bozo.
Yeah, but he was the original Bozo down there. Yes,
but he was the Bozo down there. But he was the guy who designed the makeup for Bozo, so they could franchise it to all the different cities. Because they didn't have broadcast abilities to where they could broadcast from DC to New York. So
yes, and they didn't want to spend the money to do rotoscoping, to do where they did a paper print copy of it.
Or even videotape it, because the videotape at the time was 1 inch pneumatic. I mean, we're talking tape that's this thick. I mean, videotape boxes that are like this thick and
and you only got like 5 minutes of tape in a box that big.
And they have 5, 10, 15, and 25.
Yeah,
that's why most shows were a half an hour or less.
I love digging deep for stop animation. There's so many weird things. There's one I just saw yesterday on Amazon Prime, Toys in the Attic, that was pretty weird with Forrest Whitaker's in it and stuff, but it was really strange. And there's those old Alice in Wonderlands by I don't know if he's Czechoslovakian, but they're really weird. And
George Powell did a bunch of puppet tunes, which is awesome, stop motion stuff.
What's that called?
You can't do frame by frame work with a digital
puppet
camera.
Tunes. George Powell did puppet tunes. He's the one who went on to do like War of the Worlds.
I have another off the cuff, but same topic sort of ish.
Found it. Puppetoons. I'll have to look it up. Sounds interesting.
Yeah, I bet you've seen them and didn't realize it was his stuff.
Hey, Teel, answer me this, will you? Name a science fiction television show that featured marionette puppets.
Okay, well, you got Space Patrol, you've got Thunderbirds, you've got Captain Scarlet, you've got
there's only one correct answer that I'm looking for, though. You're on the right track.
Let's see. I did Space Patrol, which is American. We did Diver Dan, which was live action and puppets. You got me. What one have I missed?
Space 1999.
No, that wasn't puppets.
The spaceships are 100% marionette puppets.
Well, no. Well, those are miniatures, not puppets. But they were done.
They're also operated by marionette actors. They are marionette puppets.
They were done by this. I'll fight you on this one. I'll die on the hill. They were done by Jerry Anderson.
Yes.
He did UFO, and then they were going to do a second season of UFO, and they decided not to, and to do a new story, and so that became Space 1999. I love the Jerry Anderson stuff. Thunderbirds, Captain Scarlet, all that stuff. And he did name the feature film that Jerry Anderson produced.
I probably know it, and I've forgotten.
Journey to the Far Side of the Sun.
Oh wow, yeah.
With Roy Thinnis. And he used all the same miniature guys to do that. Yeah. And the guy who did the miniatures for that went on to do all the Bond miniatures, Derek Mennings.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, he did, and he also did 2 feature film releases of Thunderbirds. Thunderbirds Are Go and Thunderbird 6.
Yeah.
I know more useless stuff that has no value even in bar bets.
Yeah, I know, but that's why I like having you on. It's awesome.
What was the one you were talking about? Skyhawks?
Yes, Skyhawks.
Is that one word or 2 words? 2 words?
Probably 1 word. I'm not sure. It was a Saturday morning.
Silverhawks is 1 word. I think Skyhawks is 2.
And it was I think it was Filmation, from the style as I remember. It was only on 1 season on a Saturday morning.
Okay, yeah. By Mattel Toys? Mattel Toys?
I don't think so. I think it was not.
It looked kind of like Johnny Quest or something.
Yes, it was very Johnny Quest-like.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I see it. That's it. That's Mattel Toys somehow.
Okay, they must have had the licensing for it.
Yeah, sponsored by Mattel Toys.
Yeah, they had. It was very much like the old Whirlybirds TV series. They ran the Skyhawks flying service, and they got involved in adventures. So there wasn't really any like outrageous aliens or monsters or anything in it.
Check it out. I like old weird stuff.
Yeah, well, actually, the animated Planet of the Apes show was great. Doug Wildley, who did the artwork for Johnny Quest, did that. And they had some great scripts. They were better than the live action scripts in a lot of cases.
Is this the show where talking about? Let me see if I can get this on here. It says 69 to 71, but
they usually would rerun stuff, so they, it would, they only might have 19.
Is that it?
That's it.
Skyhawk 69 to 71. Wilson family. Casey Kasem.
Yeah, it's very much the Johnny Quest style and Johnny Quest actors.
Oh, come on, Casey Kasem. Who was he most famous for besides being Casey Kasem, of course?
Scooby-Doo and Shaggy.
He's Shaggy Rogers. He's the dude.
He was Shaggy and Scooby. He did the Scooby voice.
Yes,
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, no, like I said, I haven't seen an image of the show probably in 30 years, but it was one of those shows that stuck with me because it was interesting and trying to do a more adult kind of story in an animation format.
Mm-hmm.
There's a Herculoids comic now. I just started.
They did maybe a decade ago or less. They did sort of a Hanna-Barbera universe with a bunch of them, like Herculoids and a bunch of the others together, Space Ghost and them. Some of the artwork was pretty cool.
I remember some toys coming out based on the Herculoids, but I don't remember any other TV shows. But I do remember, like, that's probably when the shows were coming out as well. That's why I was seeing the toys.
Yeah. Yeah, again, they were fun because they're weird. They're they've got space age stuff, but they're just using slingshots and dinosaurs. It made no real sense, but who cared,
I was just going to say, to get on to dystopian matters, I'm just kind of curious with everybody and the way the world is right now, what's the word on the street? Because it seems pretty apocalyptic more and more every day. It's just waiting for it just to blow up, I guess, at this point.
Well, I mean, I think that the fires in California, the continued superstorms, all the stuff that not only Al Gore, but years before him, people were saying is going to happen, is happening, and people still don't want to admit it because they don't want to spend an extra dollar. Like they're rather than build a home that's, say, because there's a couple of homes that survived the fires because they're what they call passive fire resistance, where they build them so that they don't have a flue, so embers can't get in, that actually survived fires because of that. And it's a simple thing to do, but because it costs like 7% more, builders don't do it. And, and people like in tornadoes areas, you can build a tornado resistant home. It just costs more money. And so people go, I'll spin the cylinder on the pistol and hope I don't shoot myself. I'll just buy the cheaper house. And humans have got to start realizing it's gonna, the cost of rebuilding is a lot more than building it right the first time. Look at Japan. They have earthquake-proof skyscrapers because they put the money into doing it.
Earthquake, yes, but tsunami, probably not so much.
No, that's true. But I'm just saying is that, you can prepare, there's science to prepare better. You can get, hurricane-resistant glass. You can get, you can build on stilts. You can build in bunkers. But people don't want to spend the extra 10 or 20%. They don't want to spend, the difference between a metal roof in fire resistance and a shingle roof, it costs more, but it's fire resistant. So if you're going to be in an area, and now places that weren't, there was a climate scientist who moved to North Carolina from Florida because she knew that storms were going to get worse and it was going to be one of the safe areas. And that's what got hit last year. And it wiped her whole house and everything out. And she actually said, I realize now nowhere is ultimately safe. We have to prepare everywhere. And people don't want to hear that,
It's very true. But if you look at traditionally, and this is a sad thing to bring up, but traditionally where most devastating effects from weather are on the coastlines.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's where the fires are in California. That's where the hurricanes hit in Florida and the East Coast. And the really sad thing about those is those low-lying areas. That's the problem, is that especially on an island, not only are you limited in the amount of space of ground you have above the water, you don't have much to go down. So most of the places on the coast areas, they don't have basements.
In New Orleans,
yeah, so you have to build
in New Orleans. They got rid of a lot of the wetlands, which were the buffers to an awful lot of the tidal problems. And again, it's people not saying, I know I could build this here, but let me look at what if I did this, what's going to happen 25 years from now? Yeah. And people are not doing it. The thing is, the Army Corps of Engineers, they wrote all this stuff 20, 30 years ago to be prepared, because they have to think of worst case scenarios. And places like Florida, a lot of the government said, we won't use the word climate change, we won't use the word sea level change, we'll make it illegal to say it. And so, but the insurance companies said, no, we know. So we're going to pay attention to what the Army Corps of Engineers and the scientists said. That's why they cut so many of the people in California off from fire insurance, because they knew this was coming, that it was going to get bad. Nobody predicted it was going to get this bad this soon. But then,
No, I think they did. I think that's why they pulled out. Is that they warned the governor and the mayors of those hard hit areas. Yeah. And traditionally, on top of that, I mean, we've talked about this on other shows in the network, that's their that's their main crisis, is those yearly fires.
Every year.
Their main crisis, and they cut the budget to it.
Oh, I mean, that's again, it's always about how can we save money in the shortfall.
Get your penny and put the money somewhere else.
You got to think long. You got to think long term. If you don't think long term, you're not going to have a long term.
No, exactly right.
It's that simple. On the other hand, none of us will dress as cool as Mad Max. That's the problem. The apocalypse will not be stylish. And
I don't think it will be as cool. People think these apocalypse movies. Oh, how cool would it be?
Everybody
cool.
Yeah, everybody thinks they're going to be the ones who figure out how to survive.
Cool.
You don't have the skills. You can't fix a light switch. You can't figure out how to build a fire in your backyard.
Well, the example I use is some of these people who think that money and lack of skill can get them around. Imagine an apocalyptic area. I have the skills of being able to hunt and survive on my own and provide for my friends and people who can't do that.
Yeah.
I encounter somebody I don't know. He's like, I've got all this billions of dollars. I'll give it to you if you help me get some food. I'll be, no, if you don't have any skills, either you're food or you're cannon fodder. I've got
a buddy who does rendezvous. All right, smoke and powder rendezvous, and he's a survivor. He teaches survival skills. That's the kind of guy you want to have on your team. Because he's a guy you could drop him in the middle of a forest with a spoon, come back in a week, and he's built a condo that looks like Gilligan's Island.
Yes.
Whereas I'm one of those guys, raised in Brooklyn in civilization. I mean, aside from the fact, if you want to fight me with a sword, I got a chance. Other than that, I'm screwed.
I'm the same. I'm on your team, Teel. If you encounter me with any kind of weapon that you can hold by hand, I think I can take you on. It's if you got to jump onto anybody with a gun, that's a trumpet card. But anything less than a gun, in the hand, sword, stick, nunchaku, 3 sections. I mean, you can see.
Yeah, I can see you've got a pleasant wall of joy over there.
A whole bunch of nunchaku right there on the floor, some tonfa, some other things.
I've always said that I could arm Guatemala if it wanted to go to war in pre-firearms, because I got enough of my teaching swords here. But although I've done black powder shooting and I've done skeet shooting, and I took a tactical weapons course for my writing. I studied with a Marine, a former Marine who was actually also an Army sergeant.
I was taught to shoot all handguns by several former and current Marine and other military.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's a skill. It's a skill that's good to have.
Yes.
Although it's a perishable skill. So I couldn't tell you if I could hit the port side of a barn, 2 years after taking.
Oh, I could. So one of the guys taught me quick draw techniques. I won't use his name, but he was out of Fort Stewart, Georgia. He said, when I draw the gun, I should keep the body of the gun along my body until it gets to my other hand, and then instead of putting it in my hand, jam it in there, and then put it on my target. So
See,
I've
the
always
big
done
thing in
that.
Apocalypse is going to be learning how to do reloads, how to build your own ammo.
I want to IPSC and IDPA matches learn how to shoot fast and empty and remagazine quickly. But anyway, one of the guys was a military. He was a U.S. Marine firearms instructor on Incheon range. So he taught M16. But I said one day I went down, I took a blank target, and I shot it with 3 magazines of an M9 or Beretta 9mm, and I shot 46 bullets into this target, and I brought it back to my friend, and I said, if I was on your range or one of the pistol ranges, what would I score with this? And he said expert. And that was at 21. That's 21 paces. That's how far you have to, 3 yards. And that was rapid fire, 46 bullets. And it goes sharpshooter. No, wait, hold on. Expert is the top. That's what I ranked at. Sharpshooter is in the middle, and then, but it's the top level with a handgun in the U.S. Marine Corps. And I said, well, that's pretty good, huh? And he's like, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. See, I was terrible with a 9mm, but with a 45, I hit it. And he said, actually, when he was saying, he said a lot of it has to do with the lighter guns. A lot of people can't study them.
If you don't know the stabilization techniques, because I was like you. I came, the first handgun I had was a 9mm, so I got used to shooting that. But then when I got I got a 357. A really big one. It was a Taurus based on the Model 29 Smith & Wesson. So it was based on the 44 Magnum, but they chambered it in 57-38. And so with this gun, they had an extra 2 cylinders. So it shot 8 bullets instead of 6, which was very cool.
Yeah.
But it was also like bam, bam, bam. It was a hand cannon. I loved it. But it was not an automatic. But all the Marine guy and the Fort Stewart guy, they showed me when I hold the Beretta that I should put both thumbs along the slide, and not just put them along the side, but push. And when you do that and go and as fast as you can, I thought it would take me a minute or more to cycle through 3 magazines. You know how long it took? Less than 10 seconds.
Wow. Yeah.
46 bullets. 9 seconds.
Well, did you see that for the John Wick movies, Keanu Reeves did so much training, he developed a technique they're now teaching. The flip. They call it the flip.
I was about to bring up Keanu Reeves because he was just on the 2nd season of Graham Hancock's Ancient Apocalypse on Netflix. Mm-hmm. I was just about to say that. So
yeah, no, he's again, there's a guy who dedicates himself to doing the job and showing up and doing the best. And he trained.
He's one of them.
Really hard.
Well, you can tell he does. He practiced well with the guns because he does like classic IDPA IPSC exit magazine and re-enter magazine. You look at it, you make sure it leaves.
Yeah.
Then you turn it back and you jam in the next one, and you don't drop the slide catch.
You're racking.
And then you shoot.
Well, the Ancient Apocalypse thing, it seems to point to the fact that this crazy stuff's happened before on a level that's, a lot bigger than we could imagine. And it's probably going to happen again, like basically events.
I'm one of those people who do believe we're not the first civilization. I think there's been civilizations pre-Ice Age.
Agreed.
I think we've been around a lot longer than people give us credit for.
Agreed.
And, which we keep finding pieces and bits of. But ultimately, when a global event happens, things get wiped out.
The events, although I think that affect this entire, let's just say, sector. It's not just what happened to our planet. I think there was a vast destruction in this solar system because the 5th planet is rubble. The moon is unlike any other.
It's an anomaly. They still can't figure it out.
Nearly perfectly circular orbit. No other space body, natural or otherwise, has as near a perfect circle as this thing does.
Yes,
it's at the exact angle it needs to be, or the right distance between us and the sun, to exactly block out all the sun except for the corona, which is why you see that wavy edge.
And to allow our tides to be manageable.
That is, and all of those alone make it mathematically impossible that is an accident or natural. It's impossible. That thing was placed there by some sort of intelligence.
Well, if you talk to Roland Emmerich, he'll tell you. I love his films because
I
he
do
takes
too.
these ideas
I love
and
him.
goes with them. Says,
Yep.
you know what? Let's go there and say what the hell. But yeah, I think that I think anybody who has everything figured out is wrong, because there's just too many mysteries that we can figure out bits and pieces, and there's so many interpretations. But I definitely think we've been around a lot longer than we thought. And like they say, the planet will survive.
Our
Parasites
cumulative
they go.
history that has happened over the last, let's even just say 15,000 years, is unknown to us.
Yes, we are. If you do the scale, we're the tiniest sliver at the very end of this long scale of existence.
And we know nothing of ourselves.
Yes. I mean,
Unbelievable.
even if you just look at, they're just discovering the vast civilizations in the Amazon,
Yes.
and that's only because of LiDAR.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's what that second season starts off with on that Graham Hancock
There you
show.
go. You know,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, the fact is, there's, you know, and part of the reasons people are stunned by this is the European consciousness tries to say nothing really happened before us, whereas most indigenous cultures, they recognize there was something before. They recognize a much longer history, even though they can't document it. They know it in their.
There is pottery. There is ancient pottery that's been discovered underneath some of the newer pyramids that depicts modern man on the backs of the likes of things like a Stegosaurus,
Yes,
and a
I've seen those.
Triceratops,
Yeah,
and a Brontosaurus, or some sort of,
I'm a believer that, again, I love the idea that there very possibly could be survivors in pockets. They talk about Homo florentis. Yep, or Homo florentis, the hobbits, Homo habitus.
Yes,
they may have existed all the way up to the 1600s.
Yes,
before they completely died out. So I think that, to me,
well, I think their genes are now recessive, because it's every once in a while you'll see a perfectly dwarvish person who doesn't have some of the mutation forms, like the larger hands and stubby fingers.
And I think that, again, they're very possibly in more. There's still so much of the surface of the earth we have not explored. For all of that we think we do, no, there's still uncontacted tribes in South America, in Sumatra, in New Guinea. So, and that, of course, for a guy who likes to write about cryptids and likes to, go on flights of fancy about, things like the Frankenstein monster or Bigfoot, it gives me hope that there's still always something new around the corner. Because honestly, if we had everything figured out, what a boring world it would be.
I agree, but I also tend to think that, everyone wants to go out in outer space. Let's go in outer space. Let's get out. And there's a lot of neat stuff out in outer space, but we don't know enough about our own selves or planet yet.
I think
we should know more about our planet, because what if we go, ooh, look at this nice bright shining star over here. Let's go over there. And then once we get all of our good military stuff over there, that's when our enemy, who's already on the planet, goes, hey guys, you just lost your planet.
Well, not even that. Just the fact is, why would you wreck the house you live in?
Yes.
While looking at a different house, let's fix this house up. Let's explore all the corners of this house.
Let's keep this house until it explodes, because at some point the sun is going to destroy it, and it's going to we're not coming back.
I have no problem with going to space. I have a problem with the idea that going to space is going to solve problems. It may give us a different perspective, because, again, because of geosynchronous orbits and cameras from the sky, we've discovered lots of wonderful things on our planet. Let's keep looking here.
If you keep up with the Skinwalker Ranch shows, which are really weird because of all the government spooks on them, and there's phenomenon there, and it seems like there's some kind of intelligence that's here that's messing with their equipment that doesn't want them to go any further in the investigation, and they have like CIA spooks on there and all kinds of stuff. And it's the craziest thing I've ever seen. But also, Alien Investigation with George Knapp on Netflix got pretty crazy on that Skinwalker Ranch level. That's on So it's been crazy. There's something here.
Some of the old stuff by Ivan T. Sanderson, all of the Mothman stuff way back when, the government was spooking around stuff in the 40s and 50s and in the 60s in a way that now they can do even more. So, like I say, if we hear about something, the government's known about it for 20 years or more. If we hear about a new technology, the government's had it for 20 years or more.
It goes for 25 or 30 years before we hear about it.
Yeah, I mean, so anytime you hear about, oh look, they have maglev planes, or they have this kind of drone, I'm like, yeah, they've had it forever. We just don't know about it. So, again, for a fantasy writer or a science fiction writer or an action writer, it gives me a lot to play with where I'm not going to the realms of the absurd, because our own world is so absurd. There's so much there to and again, I don't know anybody who doesn't want to look beyond the horizon. You need to see what's next. Other cultures, other stories. I actually, you ever read any stuff by Immanuel Velikovsky?
Yes.
Worlds in Collision and all of that.
Yes.
Now, even if 80% of what he says is complete hogwash, there's 20% of stuff there that's pretty freaking cool.
His current theory of how the moon came to existence, which is the wrong assumption, is still the current main assumption for most mainstream scientists today.
Yes, and he said that Venus was going to have the surface temperature it did. He said Venus was going to go in the other direction, and 30 years later they found it out. So again, the whole world in collision concept, only things happen in biblical times. No, we're still in biblical times.
Yes.
It's the time scale. There are people alive now. Let's put it this way. There were people who saw the first flight and the moon landing was only 70 years apart. That's an incredibly short amount of time.
Yeah.
Think about it. There are people, we are closer to the Egyptians building the pyramids than people want to think about.
I remember seeing the first moon landing and seeing that man, Neil Armstrong, jump off that machine onto the moon.
Yeah, I saw it live,
Yeah,
on that grainy black and white TV.
Yeah.
The fact is that we have advanced. So I was just watching a program on Wunderweapons, and the amount of stuff that the Nazis had.
Oh yeah.
In terms of it, had they put any of them into real production, we'd all be. Well, I'd be dead, but anybody else left to be speaking German. But they kept coming, instead of just actually making one and doing a lot of them, they kept coming up with new ones, so they never got them into production. But conceptually, we have so much that we could have done.
That's the reason why they started the first World Wars, the first two of them, because they had the most advanced technology at the time.
Yes. Well, I mean, when you go all the way back to the first invaders who had iron swords beat the living crap out of the guys who had bronze swords.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, mankind spends more time developing ways to kill other people.
Yeah.
But
when you go after a guy with your big weapon and it wraps around his sword like a damn wire tie, the Bronze Age is over.
But all of the technology that's developed for that, the spillover, is what gave us our civilizations.
Yeah.
I mean, we wouldn't have tanks.
It's been exponential.
We wouldn't have ballpoint pens. We wouldn't have
exponentially our technology, and then way beyond. I don't know if we have a way to make it seem like a natural scale, but it doesn't seem like a natural scale. The quickness with which we've gone from horseback to we're riding rockets to the moon and Mars and back.
Yes. Look, I still remember Colonel Keds being the coolest thing in the world because he had a jetpack, and then there was Rocket Man, and now they've got them.
They really had them, and they really do work.
And they've got them for rescue teams and stuff, and Marines are using them to do amphibious landings now. But I agree with you. There's been an acceleration that does not seem particularly
natural.
Yeah, I don't want to even say natural, particularly uninfluenced. because I think all advancement is natural to a certain extent. You have a stick, the stick gets hardened in fire. Oh, it's better to kill with, and all of that. But I think the idea that going from the hardened stick to melting stone to make a hard material is a huge jump. Like the first metalworking, that's got to, and again, it was considered magic.
Alchemy, so that's changing one thing from another.
It's still spiritual in Japan. It is a magical thing to take a rock and burn it and turn it into a knife. Oh my God, what a concept. So, but I do think there has been an acceleration. Now, that may have been guided, or it may be that somehow our gestalt reached a level where our own ability to believe, our own ability to imagine, because if you can dream it, you can do it. That was Einstein's thing. He dreamed it.
You're right about the beauty of it. I mean, this isn't a really good example.
That's good,
The Hamon line on this one is fake. It's a real one.
Wow.
And
when you hold a real one in your hand, it feels
it's not a real one, but it's nicer than like the ones that are just like wall hangers. Which the red one on the wall, I don't know if people can see the red one on the wall, but the red one on the wall is a wall hanger. You pick it up and the hilt shakes and it rattles like a
get in the tourist places.
Huh?
Well, you get it in the tourist shops, when you want a souvenir.
Hey guys,
just to adorn the wall.
Hey guys, we got about 3 minutes, so about 2 minutes now. Well, it's been great, Teel James Glenn. Your return has been a magnificent show. Always a great guest.
Really nice to chat with you, gentlemen. It's nice to know I'm not the only insane person. I'll get him out of my cage in a minute. Just,
we appreciate it. I've been feeling really tired, so y'all have helped carry it and help carry me. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And what's going on? You got any links and anything you want to plug? What was the Bigfoot book you were talking about for us? So did you say something about a Bigfoot book or something?
I did a book called Bigfoot Country, which you can find online on Amazon.
Put it in front of you because your background. There you go. Put it in front of you because your background is going to make it go.
Bigfoot Country, which has various and sundry takes on what might have happened or would happen with Bigfoot. And of course, Not Born of Woman. It's the first in my Paradise Investigation series. It is the Frankenstein monster as a PI in 1939 New York. Second book will be out probably later this year. I've got some really good reviews on it, which makes me happy. And I just had a new sword and sorcery book come out, A Battle for Stormrest. And you can find me at theurbanswashbuckler.com. And it's a very old website. It will be updated soon. And you can find me everywhere. Teel James Glenn, Teel. Oh, look, you have your overlord with you.
This is my familiar, yes.
Wow. A feline overlord. Look, they remember they were gods in Egypt.
Yeah.
They remember.
No, this one is the goddess of this house. She's the youngest cat we have of 4, and we also have a dog. But this one lets out some flatulence that makes the dogs whisper. Wow. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for having me on. This is an awesome experience. I look forward to talking with you again at some point. Yeah. And hope we don't get probed by the aliens by then.
I know, or die to the Trump.
We've got our tinfoil hats at the ready, man.
Hopefully, we don't get put in Trumplegooch camps.
Yeah, that too.
They're going to come for me for sure. But that's.
I know. I like I say, I have Fuhrer Shitbird von Trumplegooch group on Facebook, so I'm probably going first. It's called Fuhrer Shitbird von Trumplegooch. But anyway, have a good weekend, and we'll get you back to complete the trilogy and bring you in for some prequels. We appreciate it.
Take care, gentlemen. Be safe. Be well.
You too. Thanks.
Take care, man.